Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you a step-by-step guide for beginners on how to do your makeup, which orders, which steps to take to get a makeup look, and along the way, I'll be sharing a bunch of tips and tricks on how to make it easier. So let's get right into it. Step one to any makeup application, especially if you're a beginner, is making sure you're locking down a good skin prep routine. I'm not going to fully get into that because I have so many videos based on skin prep for makeup. So this is going to be more for your actual makeup application. So starting with your skin prepped, that means your serums, your moisturizer. Now what I want to talk about is your final step in your skin prep before you get your foundation on, and that is your SPF. Now, you probably thought I was going to say primer. I'm not a big advocate for primer on this channel. I don't think that it's necessary for everyone. I think there's a time and place absolutely for a primer, but I don't think it's your necessary first step for a good makeup application. Instead, I want you to focus on, if your skin allows it, a good SPF, any SPF, and it's going to be personal to what your personal tastes are. SPF is a very personal thing and it's a very subjective thing. Some people like ones that I can't stand. Some people can't stand the ones that I love. So it's very, very unique to that person and your individual needs. But for demonstrative purposes, I'm going to be using this Kosas Dream Beam. This will act like your primer instead. Now, the sunscreens that are on the market in this day and age are so advanced. They're so amazing. They do so many other things other than just protect your skin from the sun. And they really do have, if you get the right kind of formula, they really do have a great gripping power. And that gripping texture that they leave on your skin is what's going to help your makeup adhere to your skin and stay put. So yes, it's not necessarily an actual primer, but it's going to work like a primer. And the bonus is you're protecting your skin, which you should always do. Whether it's rain or shine, you should be putting your SPF underneath your makeup. So this also has an SPF 40. I want to touch on that. SPF 40 is like my minimum that I'll use on my skin. Anything less than 40, I don't use. So that's just my rule of thumb. Now I'm going to get this all over, and this lays really nice on top of most moisturizers I've tried it with. And it also plays really well with a lot of different foundations. And I have some really good options for all of you out there. So if you're just starting out with your makeup, I have some really great, really easy foundation options for you to choose from. Now, before I'm done applying this on my skin, you can also see that it leaves me with a really beautiful glow. So if you're a beginner and you want that healthy, luminous glow to your skin without having to go in with maybe products that are a little bit more intimidating, such as like liquid illuminators, they could be a little tricky to work with, especially if you're just starting out. And so anyone out there who is just starting out with makeup, you're just beginning your makeup journey, or even if you just want a really great general refresher, this is going to be a step-by-step guide on how to build a makeup routine. So now that my skin is prepped, let's get into foundations. I have some really great recommendations for an easy, beginner-friendly formula. I have lots of formulas to recommend. First one being a tinted moisturizer. Now maybe you want to skip foundation altogether and you want to start with something really, really simple, something that's really easy to blend onto your skin. And those are always going to be your tinted moisturizers or your CC creams or your BB creams, or whatever they're called. Anything that's not marketed as a foundation is going to be generally easier to blend on your skin. So if you are a beginner and you just want something that's going to be foolproof, that you can even apply with your fingertips, like really quick, really easy, and not have to like fuss too much with it, tinted moisturizers are definitely going to be your best bet. Now, I want to mention IT Cosmetics because they have such great tinted moisturizers, and they have ones for every different type of skin types. They have formulas that are good for just normal skin types, combo skin types. This one in particular, the Glow one, is really great for more dry skin types, even more like mature skin types. They just have everyone covered. So if you are looking for like a one-stop brand to look for like a tinted moisturizer, I definitely recommend you check out IT Cosmetics. Bonus, they have SPF 40. I would not skip the SPF prior to using this just because it says it has SPF 40, because the amount of product you'd have to put on your face, down your neck to get that same sun protection as an actual SPF would be just way too much product. Like think like, you know, TikTok viral video, if you know who I'm talking about, you know, style amount of foundation you'd have to put on your face to get the amount of coverage. So now that I got that out of the way, this is a really great option if you are a beginner. If you want to be a little bit more advanced and you're thinking, I want a beautiful foundation that's going to be still easy to apply, just like a tinted moisturizer, I can't recommend this one enough. It's the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. This just melts into your skin with minimal effort. It's also on the sheer side, which is why I want to recommend this for a beginner, because beginner-friendly foundations, if you're not using a tinted moisturizer, are not going to be your full coverage foundations, or even your medium to full coverage foundations. Those are going to be more difficult to blend on and make them appear very even and flawless. You're going to have to work a lot harder with your blending to get those to look perfect quickly. More sheer, light, but light to medium buildable are the ones you want to look for, because these are going to be the most forgiving when you're just starting out with your makeup. The more pigmented the foundation, the less forgiving it is on your face, especially when you're picking a color. So if you had a hard time picking the right shade and you end up with a full coverage foundation that's maybe like a little bit off in terms of like the shade and the undertone, it's going to show up so much more on your skin and be so much more obvious than a more sheer formula. So many reasons to opt for a more sheer, light to medium coverage foundation if you are a beginner. Now, another one I want to point out, because it is just so good and it's so easy to work with. I know I talk about this so often, but I think this is one of the most easiest products for complexion that you could ever own or use. It's the Fenty Beauty Ease Drop Tint Sticks. These are blurring, they're smoothing, they're so creamy, they're so buttery on your skin. They melt into your skin like no other. And for a stick formula, these are typically thicker in texture. They don't feel it, they don't look it, they look so fantastic. They look just like a liquid foundation. So I'm thinking in terms of this video, I want to just go for the tinted moisturizer, because I really do think that this is the best option in my opinion. If I had to choose between the three that I just named, I think this would be the most easiest option out of the three if you really truly are a beginner at makeup. Now I'm going to grab my N17 brush. This is my brush with BK Beauty. This brush is inspired after an old school flat painter's kind of brush that makeup artists used to use, painters used to use back in the day. It's inspired by that size and that shape of a brush, but it has a fluffiness to it, which makes it incredibly easy to blend your product onto your skin. So I did design these brushes as a pro makeup artist with pro makeup artists in mind, but I also designed it with beginners and people that are not as advanced with their makeup application, their makeup skill. I designed it with everyone in mind, and I really believe this brush is a very easy tool to use if you're just starting out with your makeup application. So another tip, if you're a beginner, you're probably thinking, well, where do I start the general application? Like, where do I go first with my makeup, right? A good rule of thumb is to always start in the center of your face, generally speaking. I say generally because everyone is different, but generally speaking, we have the most redness or discoloration towards the center of our face. That is because of our mouth, our nose, and all the different things that happen in the center of our face. So you want to start your makeup application in the center of your face, and then as you get the coverage that you want, you're going to start to just blend it out towards the outer parts of your face. So along your jaw, onto your chin, out towards your ear. And what this is going to do is give you such a fresh, easy look to your makeup, and it's going to make it undetectable. So when you're just starting out, you want to make sure you never get that foundation line underneath your jaw. You know what I'm talking about, right? So by starting in the center of your face and then blending it all outward, it's going to make it so much easier to avoid that streakiness of your foundation. So never start in the outer parts of your face, because that's going to be really obvious that you're wearing makeup, and it's going to be harder to blend it in versus out. Now, another tip that I want to point out if you are a beginner, don't pump the foundation to your skin. Don't pump it onto your brush. You're going to get a ton of product deposited into the brush. It's going to make it really difficult to clean that brush or that tool. Instead, I want you either pump 1 to 2 pumps. Always start small too. Don't waste your product. Always start with 1 to 2 pumps max, and then pump more as you need it. But never pump out 4 or 5 pumps thinking that's how much you need, because you'll be shocked. You'll need a lot less than you actually think you do, and you do not want to waste foundation because it is quite pricey. So 1 to 2 pumps on the top of your hand. Using your hand, make sure it's clean as your palette. For me, I'm a makeup artist, so I always just dip into a palette and go from there. So let's build up this coverage. And if you're a beginner, my best advice is to get your complexion products on, see where you're at, see how you feel confidence-wise, how you feel overall about the makeup look, and then focus on your eyes. Because sometimes if you get your eye makeup on first, if you're just starting out, you're not quite sure like how much makeup you want to wear in general, you're still kind of figuring that out and navigating through that. If you start with your eyes, you could kind of just keep going and going and going, right? And it takes until you put your foundation on to realize, oof, I went a little too heavy on my eyes. You know, now that I have my complexion products on and I'm really even, now I feel like I just went a little too heavy and it's a little too like maybe evening appropriate, or just more than you wanted to go for. It's very hard to have the self-control to stop your eye makeup applications when you don't have your base makeup on. Whereas if you have your base products on and you're starting with this beautiful evened out complexion and canvas, then you can look at your eyes in a really nice, like more simple way where you're not trying to overachieve with them. You're just trying to enhance as much as you enhance your actual complexion. So start with the base, Get that in check, feel good about it, move on to your eyes, and you'll just have a different perspective of how much product to put on your eyes. Now you can see that glowy tinted moisturizer was so easy to blend on my skin. It's so forgiving. I mean, I'm sure I missed certain areas of my skin, but since I have a really good color match with that product, and B, since it's more of a sheer product, it's just really generally super forgiving. Now that we have this blank canvas, right? We have a completely blank, clean slate canvas, basically. So what we did with the foundation is we really took away all the shadows, all the depth, all the interesting things of our face, which are like, you know, what make us unique. So we want to bring those things back, right? So it kind of sounds like counterintuitive, but you want to kind of blank out your canvas, like create that clean slate where you minimize the redness, you minimize whatever you're trying to minimize, you've done that, right? And now you have this blank canvas to work with. Now we need to bring life and depth and shadows back into our skin. So the best way to do that is with a cream bronzer. Not a cream contour. If you're a beginner, I strongly advise you to just stay away from contour. Don't even worry about it. Just wait till you are like long into your journey of doing your makeup before you bring contour into the picture, because it could be just A, unnecessary, and just B, very challenging to work with. So instead, I want you to grab a really sheer bronzer. I say sheer because sheer products, just like with the foundation, are going to be the most beginner-friendly makeup products to work with. This one in particular, by Makeup by Mario, it's the Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer. I have the shade Medium Dark. This is like a sheer, buttery, glowy bronzer that just melts into your skin. It's not going to be really obvious. You're just going to take a fluffy brush so you have, again, a natural application. I'm going to swirl into the pan just like that. I'm going to get a good amount because this is a pretty sheer product. And let me show you how to place this on your skin. So when you're doing a cream bronzer, all you need to remember is the high points. Think the high points and the places of your face that the sun would naturally hit you and give you that natural glow and that natural bit of color, right? So that's going to be the highest point of our forehead. So all along here, and then we're going to bring it down around our cheekbone, right around here. And then we're going to bring a little bit around our jaw, but I'm going to stop it around this point of my chin. So this is going to give us this beautiful side profile of color and depth and warmth to our skin, because we don't have any going on right now. We're a blank canvas. So let's bring that warmth back in. I always start at the highest point of my face, which is the forehead, and then I work my way down. Now you can see this bronzer is like, it's nearly not there. It's that sheer. So the more sheer the product, the easier it's going to be to work with. And as you build more confidence with your makeup and you're less of a beginner in terms of like the products that you're using, you can build up gradually to more of a medium, even like a fully pigmented cream bronzer. But this is going to be your best beginner-friendly cream bronzer to work with, in my opinion. It's so hard to mess this one up. I can't even tell you. It's almost impossible. So I like to do a combination of back and forth blending. The back and forth blending will make it nice and sheer. It'll make it really natural. It'll make it really undetectable. And then when you're stippling like this, when you're doing a tapping, stippling motion, this is what's going to give you more of a color deposit in certain areas. It's going to give you more of a concentrated amount of pigment. So in areas that you want a little extra pigment, you want to see that bronzer even more. For me, that's the sides of my forehead right here. I use a tapping motion. Okay, now that the forehead is done, we're going to sweep in an upward angle, focusing this not in terms to contour. Now I am hitting like the contour area, which is underneath the cheekbone right here in the hollow, but I'm not using this to contour. I'm just using it to sculpt and to lightly warm up my complexion. Again, giving me that healthy glow to my skin. So tapping. What I don't want to see when you're a beginner is going big swirls, because the bigger the swirl, the messier it's going to be, and you're just going to start blending this product into your foundation, which is what you don't want to do, because that's going to create a muddy effect with your cream bronzer or your cream products in general. So instead, I want you to keep it pretty tight with your blending, going back and forth, focusing on pushing this up into the hairline so you don't see a line of where it starts and where it stops. That's another thing you want to always take into consideration. And then as I'm done with like the blending back and forth, I'm going to switch my technique to more tapping motions just to really push that product onto my skin, deposit more color, and then I'm done. It's that easy. With whatever's left over my brush, this is usually what I take down my jawline. I'm not dipping into additional product because I don't want this to be a detectable area that I bronzed at all. I want it to be almost like an afterthought where it's just a really tiny amount that's, again, very undetectable, because when you're out in public and you're face to face with someone, it is so easy to see when you have a line of color underneath your jaw. It's more obvious than any other part of your face for some reason. So you want to avoid that, especially if you're a beginner, just avoid it. Now I'm going to take a little more on the same brush, make it really easy. All we're going to do is just kind of sweep this back and forth on the nose. Now it's a sheer product. It's not super pigmented. So again, it's very forgiving in that way. So it allows me to just use a fluffy brush just to kind of wash this all over my nose. There's a reason why I'm not being super precise with the application of this. I'm not trying to chisel my nose. That's a little bit more advanced in your makeup journey. When you're just starting out, you want to just add some more warmth and some more dimension to the center of your face. So that way you have a nice connection. You have it connected into the center, so you have a more cohesive makeup look when you do it that way. So I'm just taking a very small amount, just running it all over my nose. And again, you can see how sheer this bronzer is because I really attacked my nose with this in a very light pressure manner, and it still looks nice and natural. Okay, so bronzer, cream bronzer is done. And the way this blended on to that CC cream from IT Cosmetics was so quick, so easy. And again, you do not need to be advanced with your blending skills. You could be a total beginner and these two products will work so easy for you. So now that that is on, we are able to move on to concealer. Now I really want you to do concealer after your bronzer is on because there's a reason for that. If you went the opposite order, and let's say you made a mistake where you went a little too high up with your bronzer, or you just kind of put it in places that you weren't really expecting to put it, you blended it too far up or too far out, your concealer can go on top of it and then clean up those areas that you maybe made a mistake. So if you're just beginning and you're just starting out, cream bronzer first, then your concealer, and that's gonna make a huge difference with your application because again, you can kind of clean up any areas that you might have messed up with the concealer. Now, depending on how much coverage you need under your eyes, let's say you need just a small amount and you wanna work with something that's just really thin, really lightweight, really easy to blend where you don't have to worry too much about it and like fuss too much. I highly recommend this product. It's really old school. It's been around for so long. It's the MAC Prep and Prime. It's a brightening concealer that helps to also kind of color correct. This is in the shade Bright Forecast. Now they do have plenty of other shades to choose from. This one just helps to minimize my dark circles under my skin tone, but it also conceals and it also brightens. So this is gonna be more of a lightweight, very easy to work with. I mean, shockingly easy to work with product, I have to say. It's in a twist up form, so it's like a pen. And again, you'll find so many other ones like this on the market. There's so many brands that carry products that are similar. This is just my favorite formula. So what you could do that's super easy, super beginner friendly, is you want to just find, instead of just kind of going in there and applying it all over, you want to really look in the mirror and focus on the areas that are the darkest. So in the darkest in pigmentation that you want to brighten up, conceal, whatever you're working with. If you have dark circles, if you have hollows that you want to kind of bring light forward and you want to bring some balance back to them, those are the areas you want to focus on. So for me, visibly, I have very dark circles right here. Now I know it does not appear super dark on camera. I'm blessed with some really nice lighting that helps my dark circles out a lot. So don't judge me. I have them. They're there. They're just really well lit. And I'm also going to bring some balance and some brightness in this portion of my eye. This is going to help to just kind of bring my eyes up. It's going to help to brighten them, conceal them, all the good things. I am going to leave this area bare because inevitably you're going to blend these two areas, these two worlds together. But when you start out with less product right here, there's less chances of it creasing throughout the day. This is like the highest area that creases throughout the day. Probably looks really funny, but this is where we get the most creasing. So if you avoid this area and you just kind of blend a soft amount into that area as opposed to like actually slapping on product in that area, the likelihood of you having a ton of creasing throughout the day is a lot lower. It's minimized. I'm also going to use this product to brighten around my nose. I am an allergy prone person. I have just allergies every single day of my life. So my nose is just always red in this area. So I always like to bring some brightness back to this area in general because this area is a little bit more sunken in. There's more shadows here. So if you bring some light to this area, it'll bring it back forward. So one thing actually my husband pointed out really recently, and it was like such a light bulb moment because you kind of forget how simple this is, but it's actually like a fact. Anywhere you bring brightness and light, your eye is automatically going to focus to that area. So if you want to brighten this area, it's going to bring the eye and the attention back to this area of your under eye and so on. Same goes with eyeshadow, which we'll get to in a little bit. But this is going to be the side that I use the Bright Forecast. Now, if you're a beginner, you don't have to worry about getting too wild with the highlighting. Just focus on the areas that have the most darkness, and that'll be all you need, honestly. And the other side, I want to show you an actual concealer in case that's more your your comfort zone, maybe more like what you're looking to achieve is more coverage, because it's gonna be more of a natural coverage. For a full coverage that's easy to work with, it's in a liquid form. I absolutely love this formula from Tower 28. This is the shade K-Town. Now, this is a very full coverage, but it's very lightweight in terms of the feeling. Like, it doesn't feel like a heavy full coverage. It's not gonna look heavy on your skin either. It's a really, really nice formula. Now, I am gonna go back to my bright focus though, because I do wanna show a quick, easy way to just bring a highlight down your nose. It's okay if it's uneven. It's okay if you're just starting out. Practice will make perfect with this, but this really does make a big difference in terms of like bringing some brightness to the center of your face. So if you can do it and you feel confident, just try it. Now I'm going to show you 2 ways to blend out your products. One's a brush, one is a sponge, depending on your comfort zone, your level of what you feel confident using. A lot of people find that sponges are really easy because you don't have to do a lot of anything, really. So let me show you the sponge side. I'm just going to tap it in. This sponge is from Kosas. I love how it has like this really angled corner to it. It allows you to get in this area of your eye without having like a big, huge sponge. It's kind of like messy and gets the product all over the place. But when you're a beginner, the things that I don't want to see happening, that I strongly suggest you don't do anyway, is don't do, gosh, I don't want to do it because I don't want to ruin my makeup, but for the sake of this video, I really want to show you, okay? I don't want to see this. This is what I see a lot, is people are like, okay, I got my concealer on, and I'll just fix it after. But for demonstrative purposes, I think it's really important. It's really hard for me to do this too, because I'm so trained not to do this in my head. But what you don't want to do when you're a beginner and you're just starting out, or just in general, this is a great tip, you don't want to buff all that product off your skin. So you might think like, okay, well, I'm applying pressure, I'm going to push into the skin, it's going to look really natural, I'm blending it. Instead, you're creating a muddy mess. You're lifting up all of that coverage you just put on your skin. Avoid it. Don't do it. So I'm going to go back to this and just reapply a little bit more concealer and show you the motion that I would like to see you try out if you're using a sponge. Because sponges can really just rip apart the product and they can really just eat it up. And you're going to end up wasting your product. You're going to end up going through your concealer so much faster and having to repurchase it so much quicker. Sponges actually absorb product. Whether we want to admit it or not, they do. They're a sponge. They suck it up. So the less pressure you use, the better. And the less likely it's going to suck up all your product. So instead, light tapping motions, light pressure is what you want to do. And make sure you do use your sponge slightly damp, not sopping wet. That's going to ruin your makeup. Very slightly damp. Just enough to expand the size of the sponge so it's softer, but not enough to keep it actually wet, if that makes sense. So light pressure, tap, tap, tap. And I'm going to use the same tip of the sponge to just tap in around the nose. And you can see I have a nice, flawless amount of coverage under my eye. It's not streaky. It's not lifted up. It's there. I didn't soak it all up with my sponge. I did soak up some because, like I said, sponges are inevitable. But let me show you the side with the brush, okay? So this brush, it might be a little more intimidating. I understand that if you're a beginner, I fully respect that this could be a more intimidating size and style brush, but once you get the hang of it, it is like using your finger under your eye or using a small sponge under your eye. So it has a little bit more of a tapered tip to it. It's designed that way to get into this tight corner of under your eyes. Now, the reason why I choose this size brush and not a smaller one, because I also have a smaller one that is also in my set with BK Beauty. This one's a little bit more intimidating for the beginner. A good beginner brush is going to be a little bit bigger in size because, in my opinion, it just does the work really quick for you. So you're not left having to do a lot of the blending back and forth. And it's going to make it nice and easy for you to get the product onto your skin and blend it out without a lot of just frustration, I guess. I want to avoid the frustration for you if you're just starting out with makeup. So same technique as I used with the sponge, it's just a tapping. So again, I want to just talk about this one more time. I don't want to see like swiping. You don't want to go back and forth and swipe aggressively. If you're just starting out with your makeup, just avoid it. You might think you're blending it, but you're really just blending it up and off of your skin, and that's the opposite of what you want to do. So just tapping, tapping, pushing the product down onto the skin without aggressively buffing back and forth. That is all you need to do for a really quick, really seamless look to your concealer. Now that this has been drying for a little bit and it's nice and self-set, all you need to do now is just tap this onto your nose. Just quick, tap, 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 and you're done. So easy, so beginner friendly. Once you get the hang of the tapping motion, it'll become second nature to you and you'll never go back to the swiping and the over buffing and the ripping apart the product on your skin. It'll be so quick and so easy for you. With whatever's left over, which is a really small amount. If you're a beginner, again, you don't need to go overboard with the highlighting and the striping, the concealers on your face. You don't need to do that. You can save that for another time. Just take whatever is left over on your brush and use that to lightly highlight the center between the forehead, the center of your forehead between your brows and the top of your chin. That's gonna give you a really nice, natural highlight effect. So easy, so quick. Both are excellent concealers if you're a beginner with makeup. So now that we finished the fourth step, we're gonna move on to the fifth step in your makeup, which is setting your makeup. Now, both of these are powders, and powders are both meant to set your makeup, but one is not like the other. To actually properly set your makeup, you want to opt for a loose powder. Loose powders are meant to lock your makeup into place, whereas pressed powders, yes, they will do the job. However, they're not actually meant to lock your makeup in like a loose powder is. They're more meant for retouching your makeup, softening any areas, blurring, and overall fine-tuning and touching up your makeup throughout the day. This is the translucent powder from Laura Mercier. This is a really great universal powder. It's talc-free. They make a couple different shades, so depending on what your skin tone is, you want to get the right powder according to your skin. This one's more for like a light to medium complexion. This is going to lock your makeup in. Now, if you are a beginner to makeup, I strongly suggest you don't use a brush that's really huge and overly fluffy. Now, you may look at this brush and think it's like the perfect size powder brush. It's big, it's fluffy, it's gonna get the job done quick. No, it's gonna be very messy if you're a beginner putting your powder on. Instead, use something that's more along this side. This brush is dual fiber, so you could use it like I used earlier for like creams and liquids with the lighter fiber side. And this side is meant for all your powder applications. So I'm gonna show you how to use this brush and a really quick, easy way to set your makeup. First things first, take a little bit of your powder. I like to just pick up some of the powder with the brush, tap it into the cap, and then you're gonna swirl it and buff it into the brush. Now it's evenly deposited in the brush. It's gonna make application so quick and easy. But before you go in and powder your under eyes, if you're a beginner, do not skip this step. Before you go in and set your makeup, I want you to make sure you go in, look in the mirror, and blend out any creases that might have happened while you're doing the rest of your makeup, while you're doing other things. So for example, under your eyes, inevitably you're gonna have some creases that might have formed, especially on the heavier coverage under eye with the concealer that I used on this side. So blend those out. Blend out any areas that you wanna make sure you don't have too much makeup on, because once you set your makeup with powder, there's no going back. You're locking it into place and you're done. So if you have creases to start out with and you put powder on top, you're gonna have creases throughout the day until you take your makeup off. You're basically locking those creases in with that powder. So whatever you're going into with powder, you're gonna keep and maintain the rest of the day unless you buffed it out prior. So taking the powder, I want you to do a pressing motion and a tapping motion. This is all you need to do to set your makeup. That's it. You don't need to buff back and forth like this. That's gonna be messy. You're gonna get powder everywhere. Instead, you wanna just lightly press. And this is why it's important not to put too much powder on your brush, because the more powder you have on your brush, it's gonna be hard to blend out evenly. So if you get a small amount of your powder on your brush at a time and you tap it in, focusing on any of the areas that you need to set the most. It's gonna be different for everyone. For me, I get really oily in my T-zone. If you're someone who's dry, you wanna just maybe spot powder the areas that you do get shiny throughout the day, or any areas that you need more longevity. So around the eyes, around the nose. So the placement of your powder is gonna be a little bit more personal. However, I always suggest, especially if you're a beginner, make sure you focus on setting your under eye concealer, because if you don't, it's going to crease no matter what throughout the day. It's just a hard reality. It's gonna crease, and the more it creases, your makeup is just not gonna look flawless. So taking a little extra powder, this is something I personally like to do. I'm gonna just push this under my eyes to fully lock in those concealers, both sides, get around my lip, and that's it. My makeup is set. I have very minimal powder all over. It's still gonna look natural. It feels really lightweight, but that makeup, all those liquids, all those creams are now fully locked in and fully set. So now you're ready to go put powders on top, more fun powders. Think powder bronzer, powder blushes, all those fun items you can now put on top of your well set foundation. Okay, so now that the makeup is set, we can go on top of it with powders. Now, I personally think that powder blushes are a lot more forgiving and a lot more beginner friendly in terms of application than some creams. Creams could be a little bit more challenging to work with if you're just starting out, but not just any powder blushes, okay? Hear me out. You don't want to go for a matte blush. The reason for that is because it's just like the same idea as a more sheer foundation. A more glowy blush that has some luminosity to it is going to be more sheer in pigment and more easy to blend onto your skin, and therefore more forgiving. So not just any powder blush, but particularly more luminous blushes. These are two of my favorite luminous blushes. I ever tried. The RMS Redimension blushes, these are fantastic. They're so easy to work with. This shade in particular is beautiful, and it's going to give me just enough color to warm up my complexion and to bring out my cheeks in a really nice healthy way without overdoing it and looking, you know, blush could be a scary thing, especially if you're working with powder blushes. They could go clown pretty easy if you're not careful. So this is why I want you to opt for more of a sheer blush that has some glow to it, because it's going to be more forgiving. Now, an old school formula I talk about so often, and I won't apply for this video because I've used it so many times, is just the MAC mineralized blushes. These are so beginner friendly. I can't even tell you. For a blush and a powder form, these are just, they're so easy to use. Anybody can use this and not get it wrong. But for this video, I'm going to apply Coeur Royale. That's the shade of this one from RMS. I'm going to grab a powder brush. This is my N15 with BK Beauty. This is a small domed powder brush. Now, what I like to do, and what I suggest you do if you're a beginner and you're not quite sure if, you know, the blush is going to be too much, too pigmented, always pre-blend it on the palm of your hand before you actually apply it to your skin. Once you get to know the blush and you know how it works, go for it. You can go all in. Once you like get a better feel and you get more advanced with your blush application, you don't have to use this technique. But when you're a beginner, like a true beginner, this will make sure it's pre-blended and you'll have to work a lot less hard to get it on your skin in an even way. So once I pre-blend it on the palm of my hand, I'm just gonna use tapping motions to tap it on my cheek. And that's it. And the same rule of thumb goes with your blush as it did for like cream bronzer, your concealer. I don't want to see that swiping back and forth because that's going to create chaos with your makeup application. Instead, you want to just do light tapping motions to press it onto your skin. And what this really does is it just makes sure it doesn't disrupt that makeup that's underneath. So it's not going to lift up your foundation. It's not going to lift up your cream bronzer. It's not going to lift anything up or disturb it. It's just going to lightly layer it on top. And that's going to be so easy for you. Color-wise, you can see how this is just a really beautiful, natural tone for my skin tone. It's just going to give me that extra bit of warmth, give me that color to my cheek. And placement is really up to you. Placement is very personal. I'm not going to talk too much about placement. You can really place it anywhere on your face that's going to be more flattering to your face shape. For me, I like to go a little bit higher up because I like that little sculpted, lifted effect with my blush. As long as you're doing a nice tapping motion and you're keeping it nice and soft and you're not overly blending it onto your skin, you're gonna look like you have professional blush every single time. Before we get to eyeshadow, I want you to make sure you take some time to look at your brows and to take them into consideration, and let's get them nice and sculpted and defined, because that's really gonna help you with the placement of your eyeshadow. So make sure you do your brows first. Two products I think are so beginner friendly, so easy to use, are a brow pencil. This one in particular is from Kosas, and this style in particular is what I think is probably one of the easiest brow pencil styles and shapes that you could buy. The reason why I want to point this out is because if you know me and you know my channel, I love the super fine tipped pencils that give you that hair-like stroke, but I also acknowledge that those are not beginner friendly. Those can be very intimidating to work with because they're so fine, they're so itty bitty, and they do draw very tiny individual like hairs onto your skin. They're not a beginner friendly pencil. Let's just put it that way. Let's just call it what it is. This is going to be your absolute beginner friendly pencil. They come in a huge range of shades to choose from. They're really easy to work with. They have a little bit of an angle to them, and I think that's what makes them actually ultimately super easy to work with. So I'm going to use that angle to my advantage to shade on the bottom of my brow. And what this is going to do is just lightly define my brow. And then as I get towards the center, I'm going to flip it up and do little flicks. Now, when you're just starting out with your brows and you're a beginner, you want to make sure that you never go too heavy in the inner part of your brow. That could be a little too harsh on anyone's face shape, to be honest. And if you do go too heavy in this area, in the very inner part of the brow, just take the spoolie. This one comes with a little spoolie at the end, and just kind of brush through and lighten this area. It's going to give you an overall softer appearance to your brows. Now, just going to complete this side, starting in the same area. You want to really make sure you're keeping your brows the darkest about halfway through towards the outer portion of the brow and like the tail. You want to keep, this is the darkest portion and this is going to be the lightest portion of your brow. Just a good rule of thumb and something to keep in mind when you're shaping them for the first time. Try to keep that in mind because it's going to be a softer way to fill in your brow. Now for me, I have no tail, so I always have to do a lot of work on the tail of my brow. But you can see this brow pencil is just really quick. It's really easy. It's very, very user-friendly. And as I get to the center, I'm gonna just push up lightly kind of fake hair-like strokes. I'm going to kind of brush through this. I'm going to brush through this as well just to lighten this inner part. And now once this is on, everyone needs a good brow gel. A good brow gel that's just going to tame your brows. It's going to keep them in place all day. It's easy to work with. This is one of my favorites for whether you're a beginner, advanced, pro, it doesn't matter. I think anyone can use this brow product. It's the 24-hour brow setter from Benefit. I've used this for so many years. Thank God they have not discontinued this because it's like one of my favorite formulas. Now what you can do with this product is either brush into your brows if you have long brow hairs already. But for me, as someone who has sparse brows, I like to just push the product on top, and that's going to help to lock them down, keep them brushed up all day, keep them in place all day. And since it's clear, it's going to be the easiest to work with. It's going to be the most beginner friendly because it's a clear product. So even if you put too much product in your brows, you won't be able to tell. It's clear. Okay, we reached the point where we're going to focus on our eyes now. This is going to be such a fun part, and everyone looks forward to doing their eye makeup, right? So now that we have our base makeup complete, our brows are framed, we have a beautiful framework for their eye makeup to go on top. So step 8 is going to be choosing a really easy to work with eyeshadow primer. This one is one of my favorites. It's from Rare Beauty. I want you to choose one that has a little bit of a tint to it because this is going to really act as two products. It's going to help to cancel out any discoloration, any redness, any visible veins you might have on your eyelids. So that way when you put your eyeshadow on top, they're going to be more true to their color. They're going to blend on easier, and it's going to keep your eye makeup on all day without creasing. So definitely utilize a good eyeshadow primer. This one just happens to be extremely easy to work with in my opinion. It goes on like a concealer. It looks like a concealer, but it's going to blend out much easier. So I'm going to take a bigger brush. This is my N16 brush with BK Beauty. And what I'm going to do is just use a tapping motion to push this onto my eyelids. This is a really great product also if you have oily eyelids, but if you do have severely oily eyelids, I would suggest running a little bit of powder on top of this to lock it into place. Now, if you have really dry eyelids, you could definitely skip that step. So depending on what your skin type is, you could go either way. So you can see how this instantly evened out my eyes. It also brightened them. It's gonna be a great base for your eyeshadow to go on top. Now, just to demonstrate, I'm gonna take a little bit of Laura Mercier loose powder that we used earlier. Same brush, and I'm just gonna press it onto the eyelid to lock that into place. And again, if you have really dry eyelids, just skip this step. You don't need to do it. Now our eyelids are fully prepped, they're fully set, they're ready for eyeshadow. I've talked about these for so many years now, but I think these are probably one of the best products if you're either a minimalist with your eye makeup, or you're just starting out, or you just want to keep it really simple and really compact. These are the Kaja bento boxes. You get 3 different eyeshadows, all complementary colors. So the top is a shimmer, which I'll show you how to use in a bit. The center is a nice mid-tone brown, great for carving out the crease, for defining it. And the bottom is a deep dark brown, which I'm going to show you how to use this as an eyeliner. For a beginner, it's going to be so quick and so easy. Now, what I want you to always start with is a mid-tone brown. Like a mid-tone neutral brown is going to be a great starting point for any makeup application. It's really going to be so quick and easy to define your eyes, get them nice and shaped, and get some definition going in your crease. So taking a blending brush, this is my N13, it's crucial that you have a blending brush that's shaped around this size, this kind of density. This is gonna make blending your eyeshadow in your crease so quick and so easy. So I'm gonna take the brush into the product, tap it in. A good rule of thumb is to tap off the excess just kind of lightly. And then looking straight into the mirror, I'm just gonna focus on going back and forth really lightly into the crease of my eye. Now the reason why you wanna start with a mid-tone shadow is because it's gonna be easy to work with. It's not going to be too dark where you're just stuck with a really dark application in your crease and it's hard to blend it out. You start with a nice mid-tone, you're able to customize the amount of intensity that you want in your crease. So for me, I want like a nice daytime soft wash of color. So I could either just leave it like this, or I could build up a little bit more going back into the shadow. Now for a beginner, I want to touch on this. The maximum amount of colors you need to use are 3. That's the max. For a beginner eye makeup look, 3, just keep in mind 3. That's all you need. And maybe even 2, because one of them we're going to use as an eyeliner. So you could actually just use 2 eyeshadows for a simple beginner-friendly eye makeup look. So we're still on that first shade, but we're getting a customized look by building up that one single shadow and layering it to build up the intensity. So that right there, my eye is defined. It's still soft. My features are more defined, my eyes are just more open, and it's a great starting point. And this is all you need, really. All you need is 1 to 2 shadows max, like I said. You don't have to overcomplicate it. And that's the reason why I love these bento boxes, is because they're not overwhelming. If you just get something simple like this, it's gonna be really easy to navigate your eyeshadow looks because you're not gonna be overwhelmed with too many options. That's great for later on, but as a beginner, keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't overcomplicate it. So now that I have that beautiful definition, that was quick, that was easy. My eyes are defined, they're more open, they're more shaped. Now I'm going to show you how to use a complementary shimmer. And the easiest way, honestly, is just to take your finger and press it onto the eyelid. Now, if you're a beginner, something to keep in mind, it is more flattering typically to keep your shimmers on the base of your eyelid. Why? Because that's the smoothest part typically of our eyes, is the base. Like our mobile lid is right here. That's the smoothest part of our eyes. If you put shimmer in the crease, you do run the risk of it maybe enhancing fine lines or any kind of texture you might have in the crease of the eye. And also, you want to bring the focus and the lightest part of the eye to the bulk of the eyelid right here. That's going to really be a flattering way to wear your eyeshadow. So you want to define the crease always, and then you want to bring light and more balance and brightness to the actual eyelid. If you think about those two things, you keep those two rules in mind, you'll always have a beautiful eye makeup look. Just keep it simple. So pressing this on, being mindful to keep it on the eyelid, the actual mobile lid, like I said, and not into the crease. We're leaving the crease just for that defining shade, that mid-tone brown, and that's it. 2 shadows, complete eye makeup look, but let me show you how to bump it up. Okay, so we're gonna use that last shade in this bento box, which is a deep brown. It's not super intense, so depending on your skin tone, you might want to bump this up to a really dark brown or a black eyeshadow. For me, this is going to show up as like a nice, natural, very beginner-friendly way to use an eyeliner. So what you'll need is also an angle brush. This is my N11 with BK Beauty. Dip into this dark brown shadow. I'm going to fully saturate my brush, okay? Now here's where it's going to get a teeny bit more advanced, but I promise you it's very easy. Take your setting spray, and you're going to take it from about this distance. You're going to lightly spray your brush. This is going to help immensely with fallout. And the last thing you want when you're just starting out is any kind of fallout when you're doing a dark eyeshadow, because that can ruin all your makeup. So to make sure even more that we don't have fallout, I'm going to tap the brush, make sure there's no excess coming off. And if there is, it's going to come off down here and not on our face. Now what you want to do is just line your eyes. You don't have to be a master at doing a wing. We're not going to do a wing. I'm going to show you the quickest way to define your eyes and the simplest, easiest way. So if you're just starting out, forget the liquid liners, forget the gel liners, forget the pencil liners. Now, just forget them. You don't need them. If you're just starting out, those can be very intimidating and a lot more difficult to work with. Beginner-friendly eyeliner is gonna be your eyeshadow. Just use a dark eyeshadow and an angle brush. So taking the angle brush, I'm gonna use a pressing motion. And you're basically going to stamp an eyeliner onto your lash line. It's so user-friendly, it's so easy. I promise you, anybody can get the hang of this. Now, the fact that we lightly wet that brush and the shadow, it helped to solidify the shadow so it's less loose. So again, less likely to have fallout and create a mess on your perfectly applied makeup. So really important as a beginner, don't feel like you need to do a wing, don't feel like you need to go all the way in. Do what best suits your eyes and your eye shape. So for me, I don't like to go all the way across my eye line because it really closes up my eye shape and makes my eyes appear smaller. Instead, I'll go about 3/4 of the way in at the max, and that's it. This helps keep my eyes open and a little bit more bright, a little more daytime appropriate. So that's all you need. Stamping motion, let me show you on the other side, and then we'll move on to mascara. So same thing, I'm gonna look straight ahead. We use a pressing motion to just stamp on that shadow liner. And again, the beauty of this technique is it involves no blending and involves almost zero skill. All you need to do is press and tap to push that product onto the eyes. Okay, now this next step is definitely optional. However, I really wanna mention it because it does make a very big impact. It may not seem like it on camera, however, if you tightline your top lash line in particular, it will make your lashes look so much more dense, so much more full, even before you get to mascara. So again, I say it's optional because as a beginner, it's not the most easy thing to apply an eyeliner to the inside of your lash line. Now make sure, of course, that your liner is sharp, like mine is not. And I want to point out easy formulas to work with. I particularly think that this Makeup Forever formula is really easy to work with because it's a slightly, sounds counterintuitive, but it's a little bit more on the dry side. Whereas opposed to some of the other formulas are a little bit more creamy, a little too creamy, where they just kind of get all over the place and you have a lot of transfer throughout the day. You could also run the risk of it transferring to the bottom lash line and just kind of moving around too much. So For beginner-friendly eyeliner, I really think the Makeup Forever pencils are fantastic. So optional, take your eyeliner and you want to just lightly run this back and forth into your lash line. Now, this is going to take some practice, but practice makes perfect. It's such a simple technique that makes such a huge impact, especially when you're face to face. Your eyelashes are just going to look more dense and more defined, which is always a win-win. So optional, you could skip it. You could just do the eyeshadow as eyeliner to keep it nice and beginner friendly. But if you can try this out, by the third, fourth time you've done it, you'll be a pro. I promise you, you will be an absolute pro. Now that that's on, next step in finishing up our eye makeup is going to be a lash curler. Get a good lash curler. It makes a big difference with your lashes. So if you have more straight lashes especially, or downturn lashes, you definitely want to get yourself a good lash curler. One of my favorites is from Refer. So take your lash curler and you want to squeeze a couple times, or you could just simply hold it straight for 10 seconds. And that's it. Lashes are curled. I'm going to repeat on this side. I'm just going to hold it for 10 seconds. It's like the most universally easy way to curl your lashes. Don't worry about pulling it and getting every single crazy angle you possibly can. Keep it simple until your eyes are used to curling your lashes, which can be pretty difficult at first. Now, I have two formulas of mascara that I think are fantastic if you're a beginner and you just want something that's clean and simple and easy to work with. That's not too messy. One is the Tower 28 Make Waves mascara. The other one is from Give Beauty. This one's really nice. It's a little bit more dramatic than this one. I think for demonstrative purposes, I'm just gonna use the Tower 28 because it's just very easy to work with. It has a smaller wand, which is also easy to work with. So if you're a beginner, try to avoid really huge mascara wands because they're only going to lead to a more than likely getting mascara on your freshly applied eye makeup that you worked hard on. And B, the wand is just gonna be too big to get into this inner corner and it can be really challenging and also really frustrating. Smaller wands are gonna be your best friend when you're just starting out as a beginner because it really just allows you to have the most control. And that's what you need. You need the most control if you're starting out with mascara. Now, one great technique when you're just starting out is just to hold the wand still and blink down on top of the wand. I also like to make sure I get into the root of the lashes. This is going to help to really keep that curl in place. So get to the root, wiggle back and forth, and pull up. This is going to really help, like I said, with the curl and maintaining it. Another way to maintain a curl in your lashes is to use a waterproof mascara. However, it's just not very beginner friendly. It's also very difficult to take off at night. Do a little bit more on this eye. As a beginner, I highly suggest you just skip the bottom lash line. I really do. The likelihood of your mascara running or transferring throughout the day, it's very likely, it's very high, and I want you just to avoid it because it's just not worth it. And it can also be really difficult to get a nice even amount of mascara on your bottom lashes, especially if they're too long or if they're just longer lashes in general. It can be really hard to avoid the spidery look on your bottom lashes. So I would just say avoid mascara in that spot in general and focus on your top. The benefit of focusing on the top is it's going to give you a really open-eyed effect, like really bright, beautiful open-eyed effect. So guess what? Eyes are done, brows are done. One thing I want you to do if you're just starting out, don't forget your bottom lash line with a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to take a small brush, this is my N12 brush, I'm going to go back to that mid-tone brown that we used to define the crease. This is going to give you a really soft wash of color and a really soft amount of definition for your bottom lash line. So now that you're skipping that bottom lash line mascara that could be too messy, you don't want to leave it totally blank. You want to still define it somewhat and give it like a nice cohesive look. So just take that mid-tone brown, whatever mid-tone shade you use, and sweep it lightly, but also tightly underneath the bottom lash line, right next to where your bottom lashes are. And that's it. Perfect. Last step for the eyes before we move on to lips, which I'm so excited for because I have some great options, is to take a cream or a skin tone eyeliner. So instead of tightlining your bottom lash line with a darker pencil like we used on the top, I want you to opt for the complete opposite. Something light, more like a skin tone, more like a cream color. This is gonna have to really open up your eyes, brighten them, and just make them look bigger. So if you were to put a dark eyeliner on the bottom lash line, it will look beautiful. It will look very defined, but you will run the risk of your eyes looking smaller. So for a beginner, I think this is a really great step to use, and it's really easy. So taking a cream color liner, this one's from Sephora brand. It's in the shade Coconut. It's long wearing. It's easy to work with. You're gonna run this just in the center. You don't need to go for the very tip of each side of your bottom lash line. Just focus it on 3/4 of the way all in the inside, and avoid the inner and outer corner of the eye. It can look a little too much, a little too light in that area. So just do the very, very center and avoid the very inner corner of each side. This will give you the most natural effect. Just like that. And that instantly just brightened my eyes, opened up my eye shape, and it's just really impactful. It's beautiful for like a daytime makeup look too. Now that our eyes are fully done, they're done, we get to move on to one of my most exciting parts, which is lips. We're gonna keep it really simple. Now that our eyes are done, we get to move on to one of our final steps. Okay, we have 2 more steps in this beginner's guide to makeup, and that is going to be lips and then setting spray. For lips, I have some really great options that are super easy to work with, that are universally flattering formulas to work with. Now, shades are gonna be very personal. So these are just shades that I think are nice and natural. These are gonna be great formulas if you're a beginner because they're gonna be more on the sheer side. So they're gonna be really, really easy to apply and to work with, and also to reapply throughout the day. But first things first, even if you're a beginner, I really highly recommend you get used to lip liner. Lip liner will change your life. I know it's dramatic, but lip liner, it's just everything. Correcting anything that might be asymmetrical about your lips and maybe bothering you. So for example, if you have lips like mine, my lips are actually uneven. This lip dips in more than this side does. So I'm always going in and I'm drawing above my natural lip line on this side to even them out, to make them appear more symmetrical. It's an insecurity. We all have them. So if you have asymmetrical lips and you want to correct them, the best way to do it is lip liner. If you're a beginner, avoid colors that are too deep, avoid colors that are too light. Just go for something that looks like your lip color, but better. So always go for something that looks like more natural, more like your actual lip color, because that's gonna be the easiest to work with and the easiest to apply, and also the most flattering if you're just starting out and you're not sure what lip colors to wear in general. This one is called Hue, and it's from Makeup by Mario, and Hue is like exactly how I described it. It's like a my lip color, but better. So what I'm gonna do is I like to start in the center of my lips. Now this is really where it gets personal, but you're gonna wanna shape your lips according to your personal preference. So if you wanna enhance your Cupid's bow and sharpen it, you're gonna do that. If you wanna round out your top lip, make it appear a little bit more full, you could do that as well. If you wanna draw outside your lip line to create more of a full look, you could do that. This is where it's extremely customizable, but I promise you, even as a beginner, don't skip the lip liner. It's so impactful. It makes such a huge difference. So now, a tip for applying your lip liner. You don't want to go in with the pointed tip of the pencil, right? Instead, I want you to flip it to the side and just drag it lightly across your lip. That's gonna give you the smoothest, easiest way to apply your lip liner. Whereas opposed to if you went straight in like this, gonna go on a little more bumpy, and it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to maintain the control of your liner. So same thing, I'm just gonna kind of flip it to its side. I'm gonna round out this lip. I'm gonna overdraw the side, like I said, to even out the symmetry problem I have with my lips. Now another tip when you're applying your lip liner, don't close your mouth too harsh. So what I mean by that is you don't wanna go in with your lip liner like this. Okay, that's not gonna create a nice smooth canvas for you to apply your lip liner. It's gonna be really, really difficult. Instead, if you have maybe more wrinkles on your lips or fine lines around your lips, this is gonna be especially helpful. I want you to do a soft, open mouth smile. So what that does is it stretches the skin in a very gentle way, so it allows you to have a smoother canvas to apply your lip liner. So I'm gonna finish this lip line and then we're gonna put some lipstick on top. All right, lip liner is done. Another thing I want you to avoid when you're a beginner is going too far into these corners. That can actually age your lips, and it can also bring down the appearance of your lips. Keeping it more in the center on the bottom lip line is gonna be the most flattering way to wear your lip liner, and also just easier. Once you get towards these inner corners, it becomes much more difficult to get a straight line, an even line, to make it look even and symmetrical on the bottom especially. So just avoid the inner parts. For lipstick, as a beginner, beginner-friendly lipsticks, these are some of my all-time favorites. I think these are so easy to work with. One is a Jello Gloss Balm. This is from Girlactic. You know I love these. They're basically like a tinted lip balm. You apply them, they're quick, they're easy, they're more on the sheer side. They feel like a chapstick, basically, with a nice amount of color. So they're not actually a lipstick, meaning they're really, really easy to work with. So if you're a beginner and you're more intimidated by like a traditional bullet lipstick, avoid them. Just avoid them, because there's so many great lipsticks on the market that are sheer and easy to work with. The other one is from Kosas. This is a more sheer lipstick as well. Very easy, very forgiving, goes on creamy and balmy and a little more sheer. You will have to reapply these much more often throughout the day because they don't quite have the same staying power as like a more traditional fully pigmented lipstick. And the other one that I'm actually gonna be applying is from Ravi Beauty. It's a newer makeup line by Ali Glines. These are the Effortless Lips. These are so quite literally effortless in terms of application. They're so easy to work with and apply, and they're smaller. And I think the smaller the component, the less intimidating they are to apply to your lips. So this is the shade Dahlia, and Dahlia is like a nice, everyday, very universally flattering pink shade. So it's gonna look like my lips. It's gonna definitely pick up the same tones as the blush and the lip liner. So it's gonna be a really universally flattering look. It's gonna be very cohesive in terms of like the tones, very beginner friendly. And also, since it's sheer, you don't even need a mirror, you know? You just kind of glide it on, get it to the top, and that's it, you're done. But don't overwhelm yourself. So when you're just starting out, keep in mind your natural lip color and look for colors that are like your lip color, but just better and more enhanced. So we have one last final step in this beginner's guide to makeup, and that is just using a setting spray. Now, one that I think is so universally easy to work with, whether you're a beginner, advanced, wherever you fall in line, this one from Rare Beauty is just one of my favorites. This is the mini size. I usually keep this in my travel purse while I'm on the go doing my makeup. It's a great formula. You can use it either to refresh your makeup throughout the day, to lock it in, to set it. It's good for multiple reasons. And I also use this, of course, to wet my eyeliner brush when I was applying the eyeshadow. So you can use it for so many different ways. It's the Rare Beauty Always an Optimist setting spray. So you're gonna shake it, do one tester spray. So never just go straight into directly applying it to your skin. Do one test. Make sure there's nothing clogging up the sprayer, because that could really mess up your makeup. Now, when you're setting your makeup, one rule of thumb that I like to keep in mind is don't just go like this at close range. You never want to be at close range, because the way the spray is going to hit your face, it's going to be very aggressive, and it's going to leave a blotchiness to your makeup, and it could also leave patches in your makeup. So make sure you're shaking it really well. Pull your arm out, and you want to go from above your eye level. So your eye level's here. Don't start out here. If you're just starting out, this is the best way to use a setting spray. So angle it up, tilt your face back and forth, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can check out plenty more where this came from right here. If you're a beginner and you found these tips helpful, leave me a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.